But first tonight, I can reveal the Albanese government didn't tell the public about the boat arrival of asylum seekers for a matter of days before the news broke on Friday. The Prime Minister said he was caught unaware about the arrival on the West Australian coast on Friday afternoon. But a day earlier, on Thursday, there was widespread knowledge of the illegal arrivals among defence personnel. A source contacted me about the illegal boat arrival on Thursday evening, saying, and I quote, "I'm led to believe that illegal boats are arriving and the Army is involved in managing it and keeping it quiet." I hadn't yet verified this tip-off, but then it was only on Friday afternoon that the Prime Minister found out, apparently in the middle of a press conference.
I've been travelling in the car, so I haven't been advised about that, but our policies are very, very clear. Our policies are clear, which is that boats that arrive in that fashion, we have policies in place to ensure that they're dealt with.
Now, it's understood the illegal boats arrived at least on Thursday, potentially even Wednesday. When I asked Home Affairs about this today and whether the first boat arrived on Wednesday, they refused to comment, saying, and I quote, "As this operation is ongoing, no further information is available." Well, the operation is not ongoing, it's done. The asylum seekers are now in Nauru Detention Centre. So this seems to be a classic cover-up response. Confirming which day the asylum seekers arrived, if they even know this information, does not jeopardise national security. It would only embarrass the government and the authorities for their incompetence. Clearly, something is not working in the national security apparatus when an illegal boat can bypass surveillance, maritime and border security and authorities for up to 2 days before anyone is any wiser. The Prime Minister should know immediately if there is a boat arrival. You have to ask, how can a journalist find out about this before the PM? Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan had this to say on Peter Credlin's show earlier.
It seems like they've been able to get these asylum seekers in onto the coast. They've told them to wait for 2 or 3 days before they then move, and they've then been able to go. And there is no trace of them.
Now, it's been reported that the asylum seekers who arrived in the remote WA community said they were trying to get to Sydney. This would add more pressure when immigration has already been increased by $500,000 a year and we're in a cost of living crisis. The arrival of boats just months after hardened criminals were released into the community as a result of that High Court ruling is highly damaging for the Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese knows this is dangerous political territory, which is why he launched a scathing tirade against Peter Dutton today. He accused him of being angry, negative, and only doing soft television interviews.
He's so angry about so many things, Peter Dutton, in life. So angry. Everything is overblown. There is no issue too big for him to not show how small he is and the lack of vision which is there. He's always aggressive, always negative, and nothing positive to say.
The Prime Minister clearly trying to deflect from his own government's failings on border security. And he went on to accuse Peter Dutton of never doing proper television or media interviews. But when does the Prime Minister ever subject himself to serious scrutiny? Well, he doesn't. He mostly goes on FM radio stations for soft-touch interviews. Now, in order to try and neutralise the potent political attack, the Australian Border Force on the weekend reportedly called for Peter Dutton to stop attacking the government over these boat arrivals, warning that this could be a pull factor. Now, for what it's worth, coalition sources believe that Labor would have asked Border Force to publicly make that comment. This is ultimately an extraordinary demand from the head of Border Force, asking the opposition leader not to criticise government policy on immigration. It's the government's responsibility to have tough policies that mean boats don't arrive. That is solely the government's responsibility. And if they don't, and if it's putting the lives of refugees at risk, and if it's putting our national security at risk, then it's Peter Dutton's obligation to hold the government to account and to call for stronger border policies. And he did so today on Channel 7, 9 and at a press conference. He spoke about how aerial surveillance of our borders has been cut back. He also claimed that Operation Sovereign Borders has effectively been dismantled with the abolition of temporary protection visas.
They're now sending a green light to people smugglers when the news is distributed by the people smugglers that 149 criminals who are non-citizens and have committed terrible crimes can be released from immigration detention into the community for a permanent outcome in our country.
Well, with the release of those 149 criminals into the community and the High Court's November ruling that indefinite detention is unlawful, we should hardly be surprised that the boats have started coming again. If the government had used its new laws to throw some of these criminals back behind bars, this would have sent a clear message to people smugglers. But not one application was made by Albanese or his ministers. These are the clear pull factors, and the people smugglers can exploit the High Court's ruling that indefinite detention is unlawful to encourage people, families even, to take the perilous journey. And it is perilous. As you'll recall, 1,200 men, women and children tragically drowned under Labor between 2008 and 2013 trying to reach our shores. And during that time, around 50,000 people came on boats. The Australian newspaper's editorial today reported that there's now sugar on the table for people smugglers to exploit, with increasing numbers of would-be asylum seekers on the move and eager to access Australia from Pakistan, Bangladesh and other countries. And on top of this, there's the weak Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles. I told you last week how he'd previously said no one should be in immigration detention. And then radio host Ray Hadley today reported that Andrew Giles was the lawyer who represented the 433 asylum seekers trying to get to Australian shores on the Tampa in 2001.
And I'd remind everyone, the Immigration Minister, Andrew Giles, if you're old enough like me to remember Tampa in 2001 when 433 Afghans were on that Norwegian freighter and John Howard said, "You're not coming here," they were represented in court by Andrew Giles.
It makes you wonder why any Prime Minister would appoint someone with that history to this portfolio. This is an Immigration Minister who's a history of being soft on border protection. And both Albanese and Andrew Giles argued strongly against boat turnbacks. With the socialist left faction of the Labor Party in control, it was only a matter of time before the illegal boats started again.